Hey Jeff, can you hear me?
Hey, I got you, man. How you doing?
Doing so good. Thanks so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. How's this look? Do you want me to get a little higher to head level, or does it not matter?
Looks good.
You
Like
good?
everything looks
Okay.
good.
All right. Cool. Cool. Cool.
So just to introduce you a little bit here, this is Jeff Goodman. He covers basketball at all the levels: high school, AAU, college, the pros. He's got the inside track with everybody. He's built a career on building relationships and breaking news. He's worked at the Stadium, ESPN, Fox Sports, CBS Sports, you name it. And he's got an awesome podcast here on the CLNS Media Network that I absolutely love. It's called Good and Plenty. I'm not just saying that I love it because he's with me today and it's on CLNS. It's actually a really, really cool podcast. He gets a lot of interesting guests that don't always talk a lot on podcasts. He gets them. So it's awesome to have you on today. Go check out Good and Plenty, by the way, on CLNS. But Jeff, welcome. How are you?
Surviving, right? We got a 55-degree day today in Boston, so that was nice. And after this, I'm going to go for walk number 2 with the dog and my wife and daughter. And, everything is, it's funny. I've actually been busy the last 6 weeks, which is probably a good thing that I'm not going completely stir crazy being bored. But because of the podcast, I've been doing, probably 3 a week. Transfers in college basketball. You got kids declaring for the draft. There's been enough to do, to be honest, that it's been good in a sense, because otherwise I think the days would really drag.
It's definitely important to keep busy right now. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on, and this podcast, I basically interview different broadcasters and reporters and writers kind of about their career and what makes them tick. For you, passion is a big thing. And that's what I've seen on this podcast. When you talk to people who have had success, the passion really leads the way. And at just 13 years old, I saw that you went and interviewed James Worthy on the Lakers. You were in Boston, the Lakers were in town. 13 years old, you decided to go to the Laker hotel to interview him. Talk about that passion. Like, where did this come from?
I don't know. I wasn't the most outgoing kid in the world, but for that, I kind of knew what I wanted and went after it. So I remember taking the bus into the Copley, I think it was Copley Westin Hotel right there, and the Lakers were playing the Celtics, and Worthy and Michael Cooper were getting back from probably a shoot around or something the night before. They were around the lobby, and me and my buddy asked them if we could interview him. And they said, sure, call us, later tonight. So we went back home, and we didn't think they'd actually say yes to it. So we went back home and we tried to come up with all these questions. And I'm 13 and I don't know what I'm going to ask him. So we wrote down like 20 of the dumbest questions, like basic, who was your idol when you were younger? I don't know. Try like, what's your favorite food? Like dumb questions. And I was 13, but honestly, my voice hadn't changed. I sounded like a girl. And we didn't know how to record. Back then, we didn't have, obviously, Zoom or anything like that. The way to record it was they had these – my dad had an answer machine. They had these little, like, micro cassette record. Like, in the answer machine, you had to hit record, okay? When you did that, the problem was it would beep every 3 seconds, so you'd hear it. So James Worthy's doing this interview with somebody who sounds like an 11-year-old girl, and every 3 seconds it's going beep, beep. And he didn't miss a beat. He did the whole thing. Michael Cooper did the whole thing. And, I'll forever remember that and be indebted to them. I saw Worthy a few years ago, and I mentioned it to him, how kind he was to do it at that point. But it gives me a much more of an appreciation now. My daughter's 16, and she interviewed Jason Tatum going back a couple months ago. And, man, the job she did it on video. It was like 2 minutes. But I watched her and I'm like, man, like you're so calm and cool and collected through all of it and not rattled. And I think it's because kids these days are used to being on their phone all the time and doing videos. And so I couldn't believe how calm she was and how poised she was through it.
Amazing. After all these years in the business, is that fire and passion that you had there at 13-year-olds still with you? How have you been able to sustain that?
It is. You know why? Because I know how fortunate I am that this isn't really a job. Like thousands of people could do my job and do it better. I was fortunate to to get some breaks and cover college basketball recruiting first. And I worked for a company called Scout, and then Fox bought Scout. And I begged Tom Seeley, who was the producer he was the executive editor at the time. I begged him to let me do a once a week column, college basketball, for $50 a week. So I did that. I think that was 2005, 6, and then did recruiting and college full time for about 3 years. And I don't know how my wife didn't divorce me, because they don't line up. So like when recruiting's crazy, college basketball is slower. And then when recruiting slows down, college hoops gets going. So it was 12 months of the year I was on the phone all the time. But yeah, I still, the only difference, I guess, as I've gotten older, the only big difference is now when I go on a flight and I'm traveling, I'm not working from start to finish like I used to. I get a little more like I'll put the AirPods in and listen to music if I don't have the room. If I got room to work and spread out, I'll work. But I'm not going to do this and type the entire flight and be uncomfortable. I'd rather just sit and listen to music.
Quite a bit. You mentioned $50 a week. You were young and hungry. How important of a lesson is that for people to just be willing to, no matter how much money it is, just to get your foot in the door and go take whatever job it is, even if it's not the specific thing you want to be doing?
If you can do it, do it. Now, I was fortunate. My parents, supplemented me and I could afford, they paid for my college. And so not everybody can afford to do what I did. But, when I went to school out in Arizona, in college, I would drive out to LA when any of like the teams were playing from Boston out in LA and freelance. And I'd end up losing money on the deal. I might make $75 on the story or something like that. But, gas was more than that to go from Tucson, Arizona to LA. So, yeah, but you do. You listen, the biggest thing I've noticed these days, and I had it, I did have it, and I think I still have work ethic. I'm not the most talented person in the world, but I always said people aren't going to outwork me. And I think that's the biggest differentiator today, is you don't see quite as many people having that same work ethic now. I think a lot of people want things to be handed to them. Younger people, and it, look at college basketball. I mean, it's a good example of kids transferring now. If they don't get immediate gratification with playing time, what do? A lot of them just bolt, and instead of fighting through it. So I think work ethic is even more important than it was when I was younger, because it's just a little more rare to find somebody that's just going to put everything they have into it, not complain. But again, it was easy for me to do it because it's not really a job. Like I just felt like when I got out of college, I did enterprise rent-a-car for a couple months, and it was fine. I mean, it was fine. Like, it was social, it was easy. And then I did public relations for a biotech firm in Newton, Mass. And I love the guy who ran it, and I love the people I worked with, but I had no passion for biotech. So I didn't work that hard. And I didn't work that hard in school because I didn't love it. Now I love what I do. So it's easy to get up and all day, I got 8 different things going on right now. And I'm the type that I got a little bit of ADD. So I'm all over the place and I need piles of paper on my desk. And, it's fun. It's a fun job.
You got the work ethic, and with the job that you have, you really, I'm assuming you have to be on your phone basically all the time. Anything could break at any second. Second something breaks, you have to go run and jump to that. You mentioned that your wife didn't divorce you. How have you been able to make that kind of work-life balance work for you and your family?
It's hard. I probably haven't been, as good of a husband and father. I think I'm getting better as I get older. But yeah, you're super motivated, right, for that next scoop, and it would absolutely like burn when I got beat on anything, even as recently as probably 3-5 years ago. But, I would say, for the last 5 years or so, maybe 10 years, I've probably broken more stories than anybody in college basketball. Now I think it's changed a little bit. There's other people who are breaking news. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sell out for information. And I think that's where journalism has changed now. I think you've got too many newsbreakers that will sell out for information for that next scoop and regurgitate whatever people want them to put out there. And for me, listen, I'll piss people off. I'll say it the way it is. I'll piss off coaches. Um, every fan base has hated me at one time or another. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that if I don't get a scoop, I know it's because, you know what, I'm doing my job the right way. I'm going to try to get all the information and be honest and have an informed opinion, not putting out something just to put out. I put out Kentucky today. I did a preseason top 50 and Kentucky was 23. And all the Kentucky fans are obviously on me because they bring in like the number one class in the country. Well, they don't have a big man and they're really young in a year in which freshmen may not be allowed on campus until September because of what we're doing right now. So I don't think Kentucky's going to be very good this year. Certainly the roster today doesn't deserve anything better than 23. I don't care what people think of me. I'm not out here to win a popularity contest. To me, you do your job the best way you can, the right way, and I just feel like journalism has really gone backwards in that regard because the people with the most info, a lot of them, are the people that won't be honest because they're afraid if they are, they're not going to get that next scoop. And then you got the people that are giving their opinions that have no damn information.
Right. If you're just starting out and you don't want to, piss people off, how do you kind of balance that? You just be honest, and that's how you build your reputation?
I think so. I think, again, I'm not great as good as some others, but there are a lot of people out there that can be brutally honest and not offended. And, again, that's not generally me. I'll go back at people on Twitter. I'll have fun with it. I don't take it personally. As long as you don't attack my wife and daughter, go ahead. Come at me all you want. Call me whatever you want. I don't care. But if you go after my wife or daughter, all right, we're going to have a problem now. And I'm going to track down where you work. And I'm going to make sure they see what you did to my family, period. So I think, again, it's one of those things where even getting back to your last question of how you balance it all, that's the hardest part of it. That is the hardest part of all of it is trying to figure out, again, when to put the phone down and when not. And I think as somebody young coming up, you can do that when you're single. Right? No big deal. You don't have a wife and kid. But when I started covering college basketball, my daughter was just born. And it was really difficult to try to be the best you can at both. And that balance is incredibly, incredibly important.
You mentioned kind of coming up even 3-4 years ago, somebody would, break something before you were working on it and it would just burn you. How did you kind of overcome that adversity and be able to move on to the next story?
Yeah, I mean, it still drives me, right? I mean, getting beat still drives you. It's that competitive streak in you. But again, for me now, it's knowing if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it the right way. And a lot of it now, for me now, I think it's writing things that have more meaning to them, not just tweeting 140 or 280 characters. I do plenty of that, obviously, but I want to take this time. I'd like to write a book soon. I would like to write, more in-depth stories, more investigative stuff that I really haven't had a chance to do as much lately. I think those are the things that have become lost, and I think part of it is people aren't as willing to challenge people, that are doing things wrong in the industry. Instead, they're all about, again, especially people that are trying to break news. They don't want to lose that relationship. And for me, again, it's, listen, if I lose it, I lose it, but I'm going to write it if I have it.
I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. So I had to ask you, I know the cool thing about you is you covered a lot of these guys from the very beginning, and Kevin Durant was one of those guys. You were the first person to write the story on Durant. What did you see all the way back then in KD?
He was probably, 50 pounds less when I saw him. He was, he was 14 years old at a tournament in Delaware. Was the first time I saw him. And you could tell instantly. Actually, you know what? That was the second time I saw him. I saw him in New Jersey first. And the thing on the court, you could see it right away. I mean, he was so long, he could shoot the hell out of the ball. But the part that's blown me away, honestly, is how, and it happens, obviously, he was 14, but how he's grown as a person and become so much more confident. And yeah, he's changed. He'll go back at people now. And Yeah, I said it a couple of years ago, and I even asked him this in Vegas. I said, I thought he was so much of a pleaser through his life and wanted to be liked by everybody and always was. Like Texas, when he went to Texas, he was super quiet, came out with a little bit more confidence, being able to talk to people, then was so well liked at Oklahoma City for his entire career up until maybe the very end, right? Then he leaves, and then he gets crucified. And I don't think he knew how to handle that. And I think that has changed him because up till that point, he had gone through virtually no adversity. And even in Golden State, like he wins, obviously, and is unbelievable. But no matter what he did, there were always going to be the Stephen A. Smiths and people saying, well, he went and he played for the enemy. He took the easy route out, right? He joined the team that beat him, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Like, I actually gave him credit because to me, I thought he sacrificed to win titles. He still could have been the guy at Oklahoma City. He didn't know if he'd be the guy going to play with Steph and Clay. But he went there to kind of share the ball, knowing that the ball would move and that he could win titles. Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. It was beautiful. I mean, it was awesome watching those guys play. And, you kind of got the vibe that it was, at the end of the day, Steph Curry's team. But when you're actually watching those NBA finals, I mean, Durant was the guy who was going toe-to-toe with LeBron and hitting the big shots in the fourth quarter. So I think it was just awesome to get him to see play at the highest level possible and really see him flourish. And, he got his titles, and now he can do what he wants to do. And now and I can't wait to watch him play in Brooklyn.
Well, I can't wait to see that dynamic with Kyrie and KD and how it works. Everybody thinks, okay, and it may work because Kyrie, I think, does respect KD. I think it's going to depend on who the coach is ultimately because Kyrie's got some Rondo in him and really doesn't get along with coaches because he thinks he's smarter than everybody else. And
what's your take on Boston? And you got to experience Kyrie up close. How should I be feeling here about Kyrie in Brooklyn?
I just don't trust him. I don't trust him. I think he's condescending, moody, talented as all hell. We know that. And again, maybe it just couldn't be the leader. Couldn't be the best player. Couldn't be the leader. Now he doesn't have to be. And as long as KD's healthy, which I don't know if KD, again, through all these injuries now, he's in his 30s. Is KD going to be the old KD, number one? No. And if he's not, I always said, like, Kyrie's just a phony leader. He's a phony leader. He'll say the right things, but he'll never do the right things. So I'm not bought into Kyrie. I thought it was the right trade for Boston when they got him, rolled the dice, because I was never bought into Isaiah Thomas either as being the best player. And I feel like both of those guys, they think they're the best player on the floor, and that's dangerous.
Interesting. You mentioned your daughter interviewed Jason Tatum. You've kind of been following Tatum's career here and closely, and you've spoken with him a ton. And you've said, you could see him ending up in the Hall of Fame one day, being a better Celtic than Paul Pierce. What do you like so much about Jason Tatum?
He's just got the whole package. Like, to me, he's got the NBA game right now. He's that multidimensional forward that everybody wants right now, right? He can shoot from three, which he never really did in high school and college. He's extended it. But I think he's a high IQ player too. So now he's gotten stronger. He's embraced contact. I think that was something that didn't happen in November and December. And I thought it was interesting. He, for a kid that doesn't say a whole lot, right? He's pretty quiet, pretty mellow. But it was really interesting when I had him on a couple weeks ago. He admitted, he said, I was consumed by the All-Star game. And every bad game, I would think, oh, man, I'm not going to make it. And every good game, you just go on those highs and lows. And then he said, when I finally made it, it was like the weight of the world was kind of lifted off me that I finally accomplished it. And you saw, obviously, after that, he just absolutely took off. And I thought was as dominant a player over the last month before the season got shut down for the time being here as anybody in probably the NBA other than maybe LeBron.
That's the kind of insight you get on your podcast, which I'm telling you, everyone should go check that out. I mean, NBA fans wouldn't really think of that. Like, oh, why is he not going to the hole and getting to the free throw line? Because he's nervous, and he wants to make the All-Star. No one would, that's unique stuff you got there. Talking about the podcast, anybody good to promote coming up?
So I just did a podcast today with the Florida Gators coaching staff in the 2006 and 7 seasons when they won the national title. They're the last team to go back to back. So I had Billy Donovan on, Anthony Grant, who's now at Dayton, Donnie Jones, who's now at Stetson, and Larry Shiad, who's retired, I guess. And they told some good Joakim Noah stories, Donovan. So that was good. This week I'm going to have Jim Boeheim and his son on, Buddy Boeheim. That'll be good. I'm just kind of looking. Listen, any ideas you have or any of your listeners have, I'm up for. I mean, like to me, I'm trying to come up. Last week I had Bob Huggins, Andy Kennedy, and Frank Martin, who were on the same staff at Cincinnati telling stories. I think those are the best pods when you just get people kind of telling stories. So I think that's what I'm going to kind of focus on as much as anything, and just different types of guests. Bob Ryan and I, we had Dave Cowens on the other day. We've had Pat Connaughton, Doc Rivers. So we're kind of trying to do the same and come up with some different types of guests.
Are you noticing with the whole quarantine that more people are available to kind of come on now?
Yeah, it's harder to say no, right? Like I know they're bored. I know they're not doing a whole hell of a lot right now, and I know they can get on Zoom because everybody's been having these Zoom meetings. So yeah, I think it's a little bit easier. Again, it's just getting the right people, though. Like I can get pretty much almost any college basketball coach I want, but a lot of them aren't necessarily going to be entertaining and informative. And you need, like you do these pods enough to know, like you better get somebody that isn't like this, that isn't going to talk like this, and blah, blah, blah. Like it's just you got to get guys that have some energy, that are telling some good stories, that have something to really offer. And I think that's there's so many of them. Like I have a list, in front of me here for college basketball, and some for NBA. And it's like you try to find really good ones so that people are going to watch, and so that you want to do them. That's the other part. I don't want to do them with people I'm not interested in, or else I'm going to be a bad interviewer.
Yep. 100%. I know that feeling very well. But believe me, you were a fun guest. You were very fun to research. So thank you so much, Jeff, for taking time to come on today. Everybody, go check out the Good and Plenty podcast, CLNS. It's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Go follow Jeff on Twitter if you're not already following him. @GoodmanHoops is the handle. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on, man, and good luck there up in Boston.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And anything you need, just keep in touch and keep doing a good job, all right?
Thank you. It's really nice. Appreciate it.
Take care, Tom. Thanks, man.
Good night.
You too.
All right.